Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Nobody!
Hello everyone and welcome to Action RPG Build Guide Edition. Today I'm ready to drop on you my second iteration bleed stacking Warlock. Version 1, 220 corruption, version 2, 440 corruption. As always, I will show you every single facet of the build. Everything is timestamped in the description below if you need to bounce around. Let's not waste any time and jump right into this. Starting off with some gameplay. Now what you're looking at right now is my Chthonic Fissure bleed stacking 440 corruption Warlock. And there is a lot of stuff happening on the screen. So let me break down the skills we are using. We are using Chthonic Fissure. Chthonic Fissure is triggering Chaos Bolts. Chaos Bolts are triggering Rip Blood, Bone Curse, but more importantly, Harvest. We are also using an Unspec Transplant on our bar for a free movement skill. We are using Wandering Spirits, and Wandering Spirits we're kind of using as a battery. They keep our mana positive because this is a heavy mana build. And then your spam skill is Spirit Plague. So basically you're just, when you get a chance to stand still, you hit enemies with Spirit Plague, drop Chthonic Fissure, and everything else kind of does the rest. And when you need mana, you drop your Wandering Spirits. Every time a Wandering Spirit disappears, which you have a ton of, you get some mana. And I know it seems like, dude, there is a lot happening. It's a pretty quick build. Most of your skills are all red because obviously we are spec'd into bleed. And this build, since we are triggering Harvest, you do need 20 or 30 dex, which is fine. That 30% chance to trigger Harvest is more than enough because of how fast and quick you are attacking. You'll see Harvest going off all the time. So we'll finish off this mono, and then we will take a look at some single target right now. Fully empowered Ice Nemesis. Ow. Bleed, bleed, bleed. And dead. Shade of Oribus. Exact same thing. You're dropping Chthonic Fissure. You need mana. You drop your Wandering Spirits, and you just continuously spam Spirit Plague. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And you just see Harvest triggering over and over again. Emperor of Corpses. Get him, get him. Again, same thing. Chthonic Fissure. It manually does everything. When you need mana, drop Wandering Spirits, and you're just spamming Spirit Plague. Very, very easy. Everything else ramps up and does its own thing. And Emperor of Corpses, you are dead. Let me show you how to recreate this build. So now let's break down the skills starting with Chthonic Fissure, and I'll try and point you to what nodes you want to take first. Now what you want to do is first come to the right. You're going to take multiplicative damage, you're going to take a ton of ignite, and then we're going to transfer that ignite into bleed. This is going to be Blood Gulch, fully physical conversion. That is why it's red. You're then going to come to the left and you're going to take some mana refund. You're going to come up here, maximum targets, spirit frequency, release chaos bolts. Probably one of the most important nodes on the entire tree. And then you're going to double the size. Final point that I had here, I just put it into some necrotic shred since you are doing a bunch of necrotic damage as well. Moving over to chaos bolts, and man, does chaos bolts do a lot. Now, I just want to point out right at the beginning, we are doing a full cold conversion from fire and a full physical conversion from necrotic. Now, the first thing you want to do is you want to come down here and actually get the physical conversion, because the best parts of this tree are right down here. You are going to get Bone Curse at target, you're going to get Rip Blood at target, you're going to get multiplicative damage and more damage to cursed enemies, which all enemies will be cursed. And then you want right here, Reaper of Mayhem. Harvest chanced per dex. Now you do need at bare minimum 20 dex. I recommend 30 dex because every time that Chaos Bolts hit, that is a 1 in 3 chance of making a harvest, and it's hitting so often all the time that you just see harvest going off like crazy. You then want to come down here and get some mana and health regen. You're going to get more health regen per curse. and then you're going to get chance to recast. So it's going off like crazy. You are then going to come up and over. So you're going to get multiplicative damage to damned, ignited, bleed, and frostbitten enemies, which is a ton because most ailments are on the target. And you're going to come over and get full cold conversion. Now, cold conversion, you're going to get physical damage over time per 4% cold res. This is actually why we are transferring it into cold, and it takes care of your chill. The final point that I have on here is dot per 20 missing health. So you're actually going to do more multiplicative damage when you are getting beat up. Moving over to Harvest. Harvest, first thing you want to do is come straight up and get your 100% bleed chance, and you want to fully convert this necrotic skill into physical. We are a bleed stacker. You're then going to come to the right here, and you're going to get kill threshold with Harvest. You're going to get more multiplicative damage on the skill, and you're going to get an extra 5% multiplicative damage. We don't have any minions. We don't care about that. We're just taking the extra damage taken. You're then going to come to the left. You're going to get ward gain. You're going to get percent of health gained as ward. And the final 2 points you're going to take as area. So this is going to be doing a ton of bleed and give you kill threshold. Moving over to your spam skill, Spirit Plague. First thing you want to do is come down, get multiplicative damage over time. You're then going to get bleed stacks inflicted, and then you're going to take chance to bleed afflicted enemies on hit. So this isn't really doing a ton of bleed stacks, but you're going to get a ton of bleed stacks when all your stuff is hitting an enemy that has Spirit Plague on it. You then want to come to the left, chance to spread. You're going to get chance to spread on crit. You're going to get ward gained. You're going to take slow, frailty, and then spell necrotic damage per intelligence, just for a little bit of added damage. Final skill, this is our battery, Wandering Spirits, which really does a lot. First thing you're gonna do is come to the right and over. This is gonna give you ward when a spirit expires and mana when a spirit expires. You're then gonna come to the left for more cooldown recovery. You're gonna come down so they reveal spirits more often, so there's just more spirits on the field for more ward and more mana. And then finally, you're gonna come over here and actually focus on fear. Now you're gonna have so many spirits on the field, and fear will normally fear them for 1, maybe 1.5 seconds, which doesn't seem like a lot. But if all the enemies are stopping their animation, stopping their attack because they're feared for a second or a second and a half, it gives you a ton of survivability. Those are the skills. So now let's break down the passives. At time of recording, I am level 100, which means we have all of our passive points. So looking at the base Acolyte tree, we're getting some intelligence and resistance, some base armor, more ward retention, and more resistances. Nothing too exciting in the base Acolyte tree. And if you don't like going this route, you can just snag more vitality if you'd rather have life over ward retention and resistances. Moving over to Warlock, we are getting multiplicative damage on cursed enemies. We're taking more mana and bleed overload. Very important nodes very early on. We're coming down to intelligence and mana per intelligence. In this build, we are taking ward decay threshold. We're using the Bone Clamor helmet mixed with imperishable. So you're going to have ward decay threshold per 1% necrotic res, which gives us a ton of just sitting ward, which is nice for survivability. We're taking armor per cursed target and less damage taken per cursed target. You are actually pretty tanky in this build because there's so much DR built into Warlock. We're getting withering on hit, less damage taken from withered enemies. We're going to take damned overload, intelligence, and vitality. I like these, like, just build like these huge stat nodes that EHG has put in. This is 10 to vitality and 10 to intelligence. We are going double damage on your cursed targets. We are taking crit strike multiplier just for some added damage. And you do actually want to crit because that'll help spread your curses. 2 into encroaching darkness, which is going to hit enemies with anguished. And that is everything for Warlock. Moving over to Lich. 10 into Apo, int and mana regen. 8 into serrated bones, which is bleed chance. 2 into vitality. And then we take crippling insight, which is 16 intelligence. But you have reduced health regen. This is not a health regen build, so we don't care. Those are the passives. Moving over to last Epoch tools, we're going to break down blessings, idols, and gear, starting with blessings. Now on here, we have taken critical strike multiplier because we are using the item Salt of the Wound. Same kind of reason why we're taking critical strike multiplier in the passive tree. we're going crit avoidance, double armor. And on this node, this is from Lagon, you could take ward per second, mana, or lightning res. Now, in this case, I've taken ward per second to give us a boost to survivability because I don't need the mana and I don't need the lightning, but on that one, you have a choice. Moving over to idols, you want as much life as you can possibly get. And everything on here is double life idols, every single one, which does give you an insane amount of life if you can pull this off. Moving over to gear, you will notice a lot here. This build has more legendaries. I never like putting this many legendaries in a build, but honestly, they're best in slot, and a lot of them are very, very easy to acquire. So I'll take you through the legendaries and the why. We're using the Bone Claimer helmet because it gives to Dex and Intelligence, which we need for the build. You need the Dexterity to trigger Harvest, and it gives you the 1 ward per 3 uncapped necrotic resistance, which works the same in the passive tree. We are using Ominous. This is not needed or required by any means, but it's not overly difficult to get. 1 to skills and tons of resistances. We are using Flayer's Pride Shield because of the physical penetration on bleed and chance to apply bleed on hit and less damage taken over time, which is great. We are using Taste of Blood. This is actually almost free at 3 LP in the Merchant's Guild. There's a chance to bleed on a melee hit. Harvest is melee, increased bleed duration, and when you hit an enemy with a melee hit, the stacks are doubled in speed. Very, very nice quality of life. We are using Thorn Slinger. This is going to give you movement speed, chance to bleed, and 1 to physical damage. Again, almost free at 3 LP. We're using the Chalice, chance to apply bleed on hit, physical damage over time, leeched as health. This is great for keeping you alive. You get a lot of leeched damage back. We are using Blood of the Exile. This is going to give you more dexterity and intelligence, and bleed duration and physical ailment damage to moving targets. It's awesome. And last, Salt of the Wound, crit strike multiplier. For this build, any added critical strike multiplier is converted to physical penetration with bleed. So for it, you actually want as much crit multiplier as possible because Salt of the Wound is going to convert it. And this has damage over time and crit multiplier and resistances on it. So literally, this is probably the most legendaries I've used on a build, I know. Just know that technically speaking, nothing is required. On here for our rings, we're using Ivory rings for the Ward Decay Threshold and Necrotic Resistance. And we have Intelligence and damage over time. You could switch out the Intelligence if you need more Dexterity for triggering Harvest. With Resistances and our armor, we're using Increased Spirit Frequency with Chthonic Fissure and Level to Chthonic Fissure with Double Life. So that's the gear. Now, if you could spec it out this way, we have maximum resistances, okay? Decent armor, 2300 armor, which would actually go up in combat, including amazing endurance and endurance threshold with crit avoidance, and you have a ton of leech and ward generation. You're a pretty tanky warlock. So now let's talk leveling tips and tricks. It's not a leveling guide, just kind of get you pointed in the right direction. And now a lot of people don't agree with this, but I always level with minions. Doesn't matter if I'm a necromancer, a lich, or a warlock. Leveling with minions just turns the campaign into a running simulator. It might not be the quote-unquote fastest, but it is just so easy. First skill I take is Summon Skeletons, and I come over to the left and remove Warriors, and then come down here and boost the multiplicative damage of Archers. Very, very simple. So you got Skeleton Archers just sitting back, shooting enemies. Second skill I take is Summon Bone Golem, and I come down here and take these 3 nodes, which will give you the biggest possible golem that's generating a ton of threat. And it's basically just the meat shield for running through the campaign. Third skill that I take is Summon Volatile Zombie, and this is your spam skill. You want to come up here to the right, and you want to take Pull of the Grave, which is going to give you a 16% kill threshold for your zombies, which again makes it easier for clearing bigger packs or any campaign boss. And then you want to take Mana Efficiency so you could spam them more often. The fourth skill is Transplant, and Transplant goes on your bar, just like in this build, unspec'd. So you can still freely move throughout the campaign, but you don't have to actually have to spec into this skill. So you'll have Skeleton Archers, Bone Golem generating a lot of threat, and Summon Volatile Zombie, which is your spam skill, blowing up, killing up enemies as you jump around. With Transplant, you will fly through the campaign. All right, everyone, that's the build guide. What do you think of my revised bleed stacking Warlock? Is there anything I missed? Is there anything I could do to push this to the next level? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Of course, only if you think I've earned it. Best way to support is Patreon, and don't forget to check out the official Action RPG Discord. Approaching 4,500 members. This is where we do our game giveaways every 2 weeks for just being a member of my community. We do movie nights, we do game nights, we have a treasure hunt community event coming up for Last Epoch on April 2nd. Awesome place to hang out, especially if you play a variety of action RPGs. I'm done. Hopefully you were entertained or at least learned something. Aaron, out.